All right, good morning, everybody. I am going to call this meeting to order at this time of the Subcommittee on Public Lands of the Joint Interim Natural Resources Committee. Welcome, everybody, to the last Public Lands meeting of this interim session. I think we have almost everybody in Carson City, at least members in Carson City. I know that we are joined by representatives from Nye County online who are going to be doing a presentation today, and then we will move into our work session. Before we get started with any of that, I would like to ask our secretary to please take the roll.
Senator Goycochea.
Get deep enough to the mic.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Ms. Weaselboy.
Ms. Weaselboy ran into traffic on her way, and she's coming all the way from Salt Lake City. So, yeah, she's very dedicated, and we appreciate it. So if you could mark her present when she gets here.
Chair Scheibel.
I'm here. All right. And that leads us into our second agenda item, which is public comment. We will welcome anybody to the front table who would like to make public comment. As a reminder, comments are limited to 2 minutes per person. Let's go in the order that you made it to the table. Whenever you're ready, go ahead. And I'm sorry, don't forget to introduce yourself. Give us your name and your spelling if it's unusual, because we do have a secretary taking all of this down for our minutes.
Thank you, Chair Scheibel and members of the Subcommittee on Public Lands. My name is Jana Moan. It's Jainamoan, and I'm the External Affairs Director for the Nature Conservancy in Nevada. Thank you for including our recommendation to support the Nevada Water Initiative in the work session document. That's item number 3. The Nevada Water Initiative will update groundwater basin budgets in 256 hydrographic areas in Nevada, which is necessary to ensure the long-term sustainability of vital water resources for both people and nature. DWR, the Division of Water Resources, has received assistance from ARPA to initiate the Nevada Water Initiative, but more funding is needed. Specifically, $1 million is needed in the next biennium, and an estimated $4 million is needed in subsequent biennia. We support the recommendation that a bill be drafted to ensure this funding, which in turn will ensure our water future. The Nature Conservancy also supports item 6, the drafting of a resolution declaring Smart from the Start solar development as the state policy for Nevada. TNC has long advocated for a Smart from the Start approach that seeks to develop energy generation, storage, and transmission infrastructure in places that have the least impact as possible to nature and communities. We are proud to have been part of the development of the Western Alliance Smart from the Start alternative. Should a resolution be drafted, we suggest that a small addition be made to Section B2 of the low conflict lands category that makes an exception within the 1 mile buffer zone to allow for community accepted energy projects. We also think that a Smart from the Start policy should apply to all types of energy infrastructure, including solar, wind, geothermal, transmission, and storage projects. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment, and thank you for your service on this committee.
Next? Sure. Okay. My name's Craig Carpenter Downer, and I have a nonprofit called the Wild Horse and Burro Fund / Andean Taper Fund. And I speak for the Wild Horse and Burros. And I have this, I called the secretary, said I could bring in my input. That's why I'm disturbed about what's happening to the Wild Horse and Burros today. And a song came to me a week ago, which speaks for the Mustangs, which I'd like to kind of sums up how I feel. It actually had a melody to it, but I'll try and give it the best I can. I was born on this desert, a fine Mustang stallion and mare. of a lineage that's ancient and whose cradle's right here. And I answer a calling in all that I do, ancient instincts reviving, a wisdom so pure. There are men who demean me and all of my kind, saying we have no real right to freedom and land, that our only good place is that of man's slave. Yet I know in my heart there's a calling more great. 'Tis that free life in nature with all kindred kinds, exalting in freedom, obeying God's mind. For we're all here together, all beings, all kinds, and our inner relations are in all places, all times. For there's something more grand than base minds comprehend, a march to God's music that leads to great ends. This march soon to true gallop itself will transform, as we spy life's true goal, ever glimpse our true home. Thank you for listening to me. Where do I deliver my packet?
You can hand those to the secretary at the
Okay.
desk to your left. Thank you so much. You can go ahead, ma'am, on the end.
Okay, let's see if I. Oops.
I think your comment is related to the one before yours.
I know, I'm trying to click on this. Okay. This is my video. Kole Kaluza with Wild Horse Education. My comments on item 12. Roundups in Nevada conducted by Bureau of Land Management are often inhumane, as seen in my video at the Blue Wing Complex Roundup this summer. BLM personnel at Blue Wing leads the nation in preventable abuses and deaths. It ended at 4 times the death ratio as roundups at Northlander in Wyoming and Swayze in Utah this summer. Blue Wing was an exercise in brutality from an agency racing to reach unscientifically set numbers for herds with barely a thought given to the suffering they cause. BLM does not even comply with its own inadequate comprehensive animal welfare program, COP. The entire system endorses this behavior at Blue Wing, other roundups, and off-range corrals. Nevada continues to lead in highest deaths during and after capture. BLM spends taxpayer funding to bring in their COP team to do an assessment. They gave Blue Wing a 99 compliant rating of excellent. The current team is not an oversight body. It more has the backs of other BLM employees, and it must be disbanded and replaced. COP is not enforceable nor prosecutable because BLM failed to finalize a welfare policy. BLM is mandated to manage humanely. Removal and stockpiling is not management. Code of Federal Regulations state BLM shall prepare herd management area plans. The overwhelming majority of herds don't have one. Federal court in Nevada recently ruled in our favor. Quote, BLM's decades-long delays in developing and approving HMAPs have therefore been nothing short of egregious and clearly violate the rule of reason. You should take action to support efforts to create an enforceable welfare policy through rulemaking and require every BLM district to initiate creating HMAPs, at least 2 by year-end, and completed within a year, not your item 12 action. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kyle Davis, today on behalf of the Interwest Energy Alliance. I'll be brief. We have submitted a letter for your record. We are here today to provide comment on Agenda Item 5, Recommendation B6. This item proposes to draft a resolution declaring an overly limiting solar development policy as the state policy of Nevada. Interwest supports fair and responsible renewable energy siting policies that are responsive to the needs of communities like Eureka and Humboldt counties. And our industry's goal is to continue to collaborate with communities and other stakeholders, including federal, state, and local governments, local landowners, and the conservation community. Despite the good intentions, the proposed resolution is overbroad and contrary to the goals of collaboration and fair conflict resolution because it would, if adopted, prohibit almost all future solar energy development in Nevada. This is the case because the policy would, 1, limit development to disturbed lands or low conflict lands, each of which are defined to exclude lands meeting a long list of conditions, and 2, require that even land that meets those restrictive conditions be within 10 miles of an existing transmission line. Any land that does not meet both of those conditions would be removed from development consideration before any further examination. Developing additional solar resources is vital to ensuring Nevada's energy and climate future, and it is possible to ensure the development of these resources while balancing other interests. The proposed policy does not strike that appropriate balance. Thank you.
Good morning. For the record, Clifford Benuelos. I am the Tribal State Environmental Liaison with the Intertribal Council of Nevada, working with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. I'm here to convey or communicate to this body that any proposed BDRs, please, for this body to communicate to the newly formed Nevada Department of Native American Affairs. That is a body that is tracking all the BDRs for the tribes and cooperating and giving information back and forth with the tribes and working on proposed legislation in coordination with the state. So if you guys can use Stacy Montooth and her team on any of these proposed BDRs born out of this body. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Robin Orloff, O-R-L-O-F-F, and I did do a public comment that will probably take you a year to get through, but sorry about that. I wanted to say I would have loved to have been at the Eureka meeting, and I listened to it. I tried to make comments, but I was remote, and you were remote, so it didn't happen. I wanted to second my thank yous to Senator Gocochea for his 20 years with the legislature and 16 with your county commission and as chairman, and I heard that in the meeting, and that was very impressive. I'd like to speak to the agenda that Colette spoke to, the path forward, and the non-lethal methods that are hoped to not to be used for the wild horses. And I just feel like the roundups are terribly lethal, and to watch the videos is really disturbing. And it was disturbing to me that the state has been very active in promoting the roundups through a sign-on of the coalition letter that went to all the county wildlife commissions and the Wildlife Commission to NDOW. So the state apparently is pushing to have more appropriations for more roundups, and I'm disappointed about that. Please stop me at 2 minutes because I'm just ad-libbing. And I think that Nevada is just amazing. We have so many resources. I'd like to see the horses in the burros used to bring in ecotourism rather than spend money on the helicopter roundups. Get them out of the streets, get them out of people's property if that's a concern to the public, and maybe put them in HMAs and have tours and promote them as a resource and a natural and cultural and historical part of our state rather than a blight. And I'd like also, if you would consider when you're discussing management, to consider the OHV use and the crickets and the cattle and all the other concerns that are affecting our ecotourism and our water. Am I done? Okay, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else wishing to give public comment here in Carson City? I don't see anybody coming to the table. I'm actually not sure if we have a meeting room in Las Vegas today. We don't. Do we have anybody online or on the phone to give public comment?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to participate in public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. You have no callers wishing to participate at this time.
All right, then I think that concludes public comment for the first portion of the meeting. And that takes us on to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the minutes from our last meeting on July 12th. A copy has been provided to all the members of the committee as well as posted on our website. Are there any questions, comments, discussion on the minutes? Not seeing any, I would accept a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
All right, I will take the motion from Assemblymember DeLong and the second from Vice Chair Anderson. And any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, the motion passes unanimously. And that takes us to agenda item number 4. We're going to be receiving a presentation from Nye County about their public lands. I understand they're with us by Zoom or video. And please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. My name is Megan Levity. I'm the Director of Nye County Natural Resources and Federal Facilities. First, I sincerely thank the committee for the opportunity to discuss Nye County's public lands challenges. I also commend the representatives from Eureka County, Lander County, and the Nevada Association of Counties on the July 12th presentations. Their concerns and solutions are certainly in step with the challenges our state's rural communities face on a regular basis. While not included in this presentation for the sake of the time limit, we especially mirror Eureka County's position on RS 2477 roads. Nye County is the third largest county in the contiguous United States and the largest county in Nevada. We are fiercely proud of our rich Western cultural history and are committed to maintaining our rural lifestyle. One of our greatest challenges is the sheer amount of land that is federally managed. Out of the 11.6 million acres the county encompasses, nearly 97% are federally managed public lands. Our economic base and the enjoyment of our public lands are of utmost importance to support the county's citizens and communities. As such, we work relentlessly with federal agencies and their activities affecting Nye's communities. And apologies if part of my screen is not showing up properly here. As a local government, Nye County participated in the Resource Management Plan updates as a cooperating agency to accomplish a variety of long-term development and conservation goals. In the Southern Nevada District, this was a nearly decade-long commitment of Nye County resources and staff involvement. The current and standing 1998 RMP precludes Nye County's plans. As a result, the county was dedicated to including our needed lands requests to the RMP update, which were incorporated in the 2018 draft. Ultimately, the Nye County RMPs were suspended or terminated along with most Western-wide RMP updates. Although the county's efforts were stymied, we marched forward. The county held internal discussions with the BLM to determine a resolution. BLM suggested we develop several focused plan amendments to the 1998 document to pursue our lands needs. Before we could make real progress, the FPAs were halted in lieu of an anticipated statewide RMP, an unprecedented concept announced in 2021. Originally proposed to be published by 2025, the statewide RMP has gained little traction. It's reasonable to expect that the timeline to establish and undertake a new RMP process will likely be several years in the making, assuming that funding for the project will be provided. In the central and southern county, public lands managed for exclusive use of defense and energy purposes are about 2.8 million acres, or 25% of our lands, now about 35. These sites are used for bombing and other high hazard activities and are so close to all other uses. This closure eliminates the current and future economic potential of these lands, most notably mining, from which Nye derives its greatest fiscal revenues. In the unlikely event that land is no longer needed for DoD or DOE use, contamination on those lands would prohibit public use. While mitigation is available for communities affected by these activities, Nye County does not receive any beneficial opportunities or grants, which are limited to communities hosting military bases. Lost tax revenues and fees are not quantified or disclosed in nearly any of the EISs, so that the cost of future mitigation impacts can be reasonably committed in the records of decision or to support future congressional direction. County revenue losses include PILT, taxes, fees, and other sources, including taxes from the net proceeds of minerals, room taxes, additional real and personal property taxes, and fees from development on withdrawn land. Such tax revenues could be used to remedy chronic budget shortfalls, emergency medical response services, and the healthcare crisis in northern Nye County. The local economic and fiscal impacts of lost opportunities from DoD land withdrawals were previously assessed, quantified, and disclosed in the congressionally mandated Special Nevada Report developed by SAIC in 1991. For instance, the report found that if the Nevada Test and Training Range lands were not withdrawn and were available for alternative uses, Nye County's gross regional product would increase by up to 9%. The loss cumulatively equates to hundreds of millions of dollars. Federal legislation is the foremost option available to aid the county in mitigating the impacts of existing and newly proposed federal land withdrawals and to accomplish local land use goals. The Nye County Conservation and Economic Development Act was primarily born from the land withdrawal impacts in the outdated RMPs we've addressed. The cumulative impacts of removing public land for multiple use, the result of federal land withdrawals, are not well documented in environmental reviews provided through NEPA. For most proposed actions, long-term analyses are considered speculative, having timeframes that are beyond the reasonably foreseeable future, and are therefore dismissed from further consideration in NEPA documents. Landscape level planning, renewable energy, and federal agency-produced rules to amend land laws are also rapidly expanding. There's the additional need to update federal land status in Nye County to correspond with evolving county plans prior to federal project withdrawals and programs. Nye County has an urgent need for congressional action. The act is supported by local, state, federal, and tribal governments, as well as special interest groups, among many others. An economic analysis conducted through UNR and GOED concluded that Nye County's current population and economic base cannot support current proposed operations unless more land is available to the county. The team opined that existing and future project development simply will not be able to happen if the land spill is unsuccessful. So what does the land spill achieve? Oh, I'm sorry. Among the actions listed in the slide, the bill finally brings Nye County under the umbrella of the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act, an inclusion that can only be implemented through Congress. It's the one mechanism through which we would fund our public land purchases. Another highlighted request of the lands bill is to remove the reversionary interest associated with our long-anticipated fairgrounds development in the town of Pahrump. The land was patented through Congress with a reversion clause. Administratively, the BLM Las Vegas field office has been uncertain regarding the process of a direct sale for the removal. As such, we have gained little traction since our initial request in 2017. While we wait for an updated RMP and continue to promote our lands bill, BLM is expediently processing individual solar applications. Although renewable energy is a noble pursuit, the county's commissioners and its citizens have expressed legitimate concerns regarding the siting of these facilities, which take up thousands of acres per project, often on pristine and wildlife inhabited desert landscapes, and are butted up against each of Nye County's towns. It's our desire to meaningfully collaborate with BLM, the state, and the federal government to pursue our suggestions to mutually benefit all involved. So far, our attempts have had no teeth in the BLM siting process. Still, Nevada's rural counties continue to work with BLM on the solar PEIS. Although it hasn't been reviewed or officially approved by my county board, the Smart from the Start program developed by Eureka County, NACO, and the Nature Conservancy adequately accomplishes siting priorities indicated in the PEIS, while also considering the needs of local communities. Many of Nevada's rural communities have expressed that this should be the preferred alternative in the EIS. I'm running out of time, so I will briefly provide an overview of mining impacts to our communities by presenting one town perspective in Nye. Beatty, Nevada is a history-packed rural town that enjoys the economic benefits of ecotourism due to their many trails. They are additionally proud of their status as the gateway to Death Valley. I'll present specific bullet points of their concerns. One proposed gold mining project expects impacts to Beatty's water table and water source, with water table recovery anticipated between 80 to 200 years. Lithium mining in the area brings even more greater water-related concerns. Active mining operations eradicate, displace, or otherwise impact historic landmarks, railroad grades, visual landscapes, and night skies, among other ecotourism-based activities. Housing for workers must be established for the town to support these activities. However, significant developer investment in infrastructure is required for the town to accommodate projects. Ground disturbance creates wildlife migration into human spaces and may shift rainwater flow into areas already prone to floods. Beta believes that honest communication and sincere strategic planning can help mitigate and overcome these issues. So the recommendations we have are to resolve BLM administrative delays through support of the Nye County Conservation and Economic Development Act. Fund and implement the statewide RMP prior to the expedition of landscape level programs and fast-paced renewable energy siting. Implement Start from the Start program as the preferred alternative in the utility scale solar PEIS. Require real mitigation of federal land actions impacting natural resources. And update the special Nevada report to not only include the impacts resulting from military land withdrawals, but to include impacts from all federal land withdrawals. Thank you for your time and consideration of Nye County's top concerns for our public lands. I really had to shave down a lot of pertinent details for the time limit, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and we appreciate that it is a limited amount of time, but it's really important to us that we get to hear from all of our Nevada communities. So let me see if the members of the committee have questions at this point. Okay, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you for your presentation. Well, with regards to your lands bill, is that something where you already have a sponsor that is moving forward with a bill? Because I'm not familiar with that.
Thank you. That was one of the things I had to shave down in my presentation.
Gotcha.
We do have Congressman Horsford working with us to introduce the lands bill hopefully this year or next. We're also seeking support and working with Senator Rosen and Cortez Masta's office to receive their bipartisan support as well.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. And I know that during our meeting in Eureka, which again, thank you so much, Senator Gocochea, for hosting us for that dinner and beautiful area, because I know you were personally responsible for how beautiful that place was. But anyway, it was brought up about the difficulty in going through different applications, whether it is for solar farms or for other type of items to be utilized with the county and also with some of the BLM restrictions or expectations. What is your current staffing when it comes to reviewing idea? I know that this is not part of this presentation, so I understand if you do not have it. But what is the current staffing when reviewing those items for applications? And is that also a concern that your county has experienced, similar to other counties that were presented last time?
Thank you for the question. That was another one I had to shave out of my introduction. Currently, the point of contact for BLM applications is me. I am a staff of one in my Natural Resources office. Always our commissioners and our county manager are kept apprised of these activities. They are always very engaged with them, but I am the one who does the official reviews and provide comments during the NEPA process.
Thank you. So how many would you say that, and again, not expecting you to know this off the top of your head, but if you do, how many would you say that you have currently on file and like to review over the next time frame, or that you have reviewed, would you say, over the last year? If there's a way to get that sort of idea of how much you've got to do.
Okay, that I would guess probably 30 to 40 that I have been working on or are currently anticipating updates to work on, or have been ongoing over the NEPA process, probably 30 to 40 at least.
Thank you so much, and I know I put you on the spot for that, so thank you for being able to figure it out that quickly. Thank you, Chair.
That's just a guesstimate, so.
All right, any other questions? Yeah, Ms. Weaselboy. Oh, there's...
Thank you for your presentation. I'm Marissa Weaselboy, an enrolled member of the Yamba Shoshone tribe within Nye County. I just wanted to ask if there was any coordination and work with the Yamba Shoshone tribe on the Nye County lands bill.
Yes, absolutely. We're actually in our lands bill conveying 40 acres of forest land to the tribe after discussions with the tribal government for Yamba Shoshone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or follow-ups? All right, I don't see anything, so thank you again for your presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. I will close now agenda item 4, and that takes on to agenda item number 5, which is our work session. We have a number of proposals on the work session document. The work session document has been provided to all of the members of the committee or the subcommittee, and it is also available online. And I'm going to ask Mr. Stinisbeck to walk us through the document. For those who are unfamiliar or who maybe haven't done this in a few months like me, the work session document does include all of the proposals. We'll go through them one by one and we can vote on them one by one.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Jan Stinisbeck with the Research Division of the LCB. As nonpartisan staff, I cannot advocate for or against any proposal that comes before this body. With that, at the pleasure of the Chair, I will walk the subcommittee through the work session document. As in the work session document, the Chair and staff of the subcommittee have worked on preparing this work session document to assist the subcommittee in determining which legislative measures it will recommend to the full committee to be requested for the 2025 legislative session of the Nevada Legislature, as well as other actions the subcommittee may endorse. The work session document contains a summary of recommendations presented during public hearings, through communication with individual subcommittee members, or through correspondence submitted to subcommittee members or staff. The members of the subcommittee do not necessarily support or oppose the recommendation in this work session document. It is just compiled by staff to organize the proposal so subcommittee members can review them and decide whether they want to accept, reject, modify, or take no action on the recommendation. Pursuant to NRS 218D.160 and 218E.525, the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources is limited to 14 legislative measures, at least 4 of which must be related to matters relating to public lands based on the recommendations of the Subcommittee on Public Lands. With that, the first set of recommendations pertains in general terms to water, and A1 requests the drafting of a bill that revises various provisions of water law that would encourage water conservation. This includes, but isn't limited to, revising NRS 533.024 to include the encouragement of the efficient use of water as a matter of state policy, adding language to NRS related to filling conservation plans with the state engineer, revising NRS 533.0241 to require the state engineer to treat water conserved under a conservation plan as appropriated water, and excluding water conserved under a conservation plan from the abandonment provision of NRS 533.060 and 534.090. This recommendation was made by Kyle Rornick with the Great Basin Water Network, and you can see for additional back information attachment A1. Unfortunately, Mr. Rornick is not able to be here today. However, he submitted additionally a fact sheet, which can be found under public comment, to hopefully answer any questions that the subcommittee might have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll open up recommendation A1 for discussion. If anybody wants to make any comments, ask any questions about recommendation number 1 at this point in time. Thank you. Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you. It's not necessarily regarding this specific bill. Instead, it's the process that you would like to go through on this. Since 1 and 2, a few of these appear to be possibly to be able to work together, do you expect us to, and you might have gone over it and I did not quite understand, do you wish to look at them separately, or is this a way to possibly combine the two? What do you foresee as chair of this?
I'm open to suggestions from the committee. I think these were distilled from a larger group of suggestions, and some of them have already been combined to come up with the 8 that you have in front of you today. But certainly we can have a discussion on all of them. We can move at some point to combine two and then approve the drafting of that BDR if that's what we want to do. Or we can vote on all 8 of them separately.
Thank you so much for that clarification, because although there are some things that are common, there are also some things that are very different in the two. So that's why I wanted to double check that and just make sure that I had it clear in my very befuddled mind around there. So thank you so much for that clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there any discussion? Okay, Senator Goicoechea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, I'm just going to walk through the water ones first, I guess, if that's okay with you as the chair. Clearly, on A1, that's a major bill, a major undertaking when you start talking about conservation water, and just exactly what does that do to the water if, in fact, will that allow? I'm really concerned about that bill and coming from this committee because of the ramifications. A2, clearly we're going to have to deal with basin assessments at some point. What they're being used for, should there be a cap, is there a minimum charge? And I think there is a basis for that from this committee, again, because it is funding, and that dialogue should be had in the legislative session. What are those funds intended for? Should there be a cap? Should there be a minimum? And again, if they are collected in that basin, should they be used primarily in that basin? Can you carve a piece off? But I think that's an interesting dialogue. And just as a counterpoint, I'm going to say, this agenda and looking at this book is not very different from 22 years ago when I first had my first one of these meetings. Most of the issues are still here. We've got horses, we've got water, we've got, RS 2477 roads. And unfortunately, we haven't fixed many of those. So in my 22 years, so good luck going forward. Thank you. So anyway, just getting back to, I think that clearly we've got, bill drafts that are going to come from this recommendation from this committee to the main committee. And, I do think we have to deal with basin assessments. Clearly, A3, that's a budget bill in my mind. We're going to have to, that appropriation probably should be made, but what we decide here in this subcommittee, going to the full committee, is going to depend on Monroe and, Dondero Loop in the end in the Finance Committee. So I don't know if it really has a place other than, and then, groundwater boards, I've been involved in that back to when I was a county commissioner and we petitioned for a groundwater board. Again, another dialogue that's very interesting. Again, I'm back to county involvement and how much say the county should have, local government should have in all these decisions that are coming forward. And of course, I'm an advocate for home rule and my friend here, to my county commissioner Jones. So the closer to the people, the better. And so I do like county groundwater boards, but again, that's a dialogue that has to be had. So with that, I guess my recommendation, I clearly would like to see a BDR coming from this subcommittee on at a minimum. Let's have a discussion on basin assessments and what that money can be used for. As we get into the main committee, I know we're going to talk about the water right retirement bill and some of those issues. And is it feasible to use basin assessments to offset water right retirement? Or there's a lot of dialogue needs to be had there. So, but I guess as I look at them, that would be my recommendation. I think 2 is probably the cleanest. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I agree with your assessment, and I think recommendation number 2 is very important. I also I appreciate you pointing out recommendation number 3, and I'm sorry I didn't let Mr. Sinisbeck read through all of them. I don't know if you want to do that now. Okay. I think the members of the committee have read them, and for those of you following along at home, recommendation 1 is the one that he read on the record. Recommendation 2 is about the groundwater assessments, and recommendation 3 is just drafting an appropriations bill to appropriate $1 million to the Division of Water Resources for the Nevada Water Initiative. And I think that it is not customary for interim committees to draft appropriations bills. I also don't think there's a reason that we can't do it. And so it's a conversation that we're, we can have right now as a subcommittee about logistically, procedurally, if that is the way that we want to communicate to the larger body, the larger legislature, that we want this $1 million in the appropriated budget. I mean, we could also send a letter to the Finance Committee. We could also send a letter to the governor. We could also just talk to our friends about it. But I think that, the strongest way to communicate our desire for this $1 million appropriation is to put it in a bill. And then those of us who are returning to the legislature in the next session will be responsible for carrying that bill forward and convincing all of our colleagues to vote to approve that appropriation. It looks like Commissioner Jones has a contribution.
I had a question about 4 when we get there. I don't know sort of where we're at in the discussion. But.
I'm going to hand it back over to Mr. Stinsback to read through the rest of the work session document, Part A. Thank you.
Again, for the record, Jan Stinsbeck with the Research Division. So recommendation A2, as the chair was mentioning, is the request to draft a bill to remove the minimum charge and establish a maximum charge for special assessment levy upon certain designated basins where groundwater use is predominantly for agricultural purpose, limit the use of the special assessment to activities that are directly related to the groundwater basin and require annual reporting on expenditures and activities funded by the special assessment. This was recommended by Jeff Fontaine with the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority and Humboldt Water River Basin Authority. There's an additionally attachment here to the work session document under A2. I believe Mr. Fontaine is in the room as well. Would you like me to continue going through the other recommendations?
Sorry.
To finish number 2. So I'll continue then, per the chair. The other recommendation is A3, which requests the drafting of a bill to appropriate $1 million to the Division of Water Resources to support the Nevada State Engineer and the Nevada Water Initiative. This was recommended by Jana Moen with the Nature Conservancy. You can see attachment A3. There's also public comment online in support of the concept of supporting funding for the Nevada Water Initiative by the Nevada Mining Association. The next recommendation on the water is A4, which requests the drafting of a bill to authorize a board of county commissioners to establish a groundwater board. This was recommended also by Mr. Fontaine with the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority. There's an attachment for that as well under A4. And that concludes the recommendations pertaining to water. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and sorry for the confusion there, but I appreciate you walking us through those, and we'll open it back up for discussion. Senator Goycochea.
And I'm going to start out by apologizing. In my 20 years here, I never really did learn. Only got to chair one committee in 20 years, so I apologize for breaking how you wanted to deal with it. But I was hoping that we could maybe take up the water and. I don't know how many bill drafts we're going to bring out of this committee, but is it 4? Or is there a number?
Jan Stinsbeck, for the record, the way I understand it is that from the 14 bills that the Natural Resource Committee gets, 4 need to be pertain to public lands, need to be on the recommendation of public lands. It doesn't mean that there couldn't be more.
So then I'm just trying to establish the ground rules here, Madam Chair. You'll forgive me. So we can bring 8 or 10, but then we'll deal with them this afternoon. How many we're actually going to? Okay. Well, then I guess we've got 8 on the list. That'd be easy to bring them forward. Huh? Sorry.
Yeah, so if we want to just stick to the water bills or the recommendations at this point, I guess I'm looking to the committee to kind of give me a sense of whether we're in favor of all 4 of them or whether there are any that cause concerns, questions that you would like to make changes to before we move to approve them. And I see questions from both sides, so I'm going to start with Commissioner Jones.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just with regards to recommendation number 4, can I just get clarification? This allows county commissions, and I appreciate my colleague. I'm definitely in favor of more local control, but groundwater basins don't necessarily follow geographic county lines. And so I guess my question would be, and I don't know if this is to the committee or to Mr. Fontaine, does this limit it to each county would designate a groundwater basin committee, or would it be more counties could designate groundwater basin committees that cross county boundaries, if that makes sense, based on where the basin is?
Erin Sturdivant, Legislative Council Bureau. This would something Mr. Fontaine could provide additional detail on, but my understanding is the way it would work is it would be based on the groundwater basin, so a Board of County Commissioners in one basin could recommend it, or if the basin straddles lines, then the Board of County Commissioners could recommend it together.
Great, thank you.
And Assemblymember DeLong, I think you also had a question or comment.
Yeah, mostly comment, but I want to follow up on that discussion we just had. I have concerns about item number 1 also. I just don't feel like we've fully discussed this concept of establishing basically conservation water rights is kind of the way I'm reading it. So I don't feel ready to move forward on that bill. The other bills, I think I would be willing to move forward on. I still have a question to follow up on the basins that cross county lines. What if one county approves, but the other county doesn't? How does that basin get managed? That seems to be an unresolved condition.
So I'm just going to jump in for a second and remind everybody that these are bill draft requests. We're not approving actual bills at this point. So I think you bring up an excellent question that would be, discussed throughout the process of both the bill draft and running the bill through the committee process. And if it were to ultimately pass, definitely that question would have to be answered. I don't think we need to make that policy decision in order to make the decision to draft a bill. And so I wonder if that might also be pertinent to recommendation 1, remembering that we're only voting to approve the drafting of the bill. Anybody on the committee we do have an interesting committee, by the way, because we have voting members who are not members of the legislature. But for the members of the legislature, we would still have the ability to change our vote at any point in time. Just because we support drafting a BDR doesn't mean that we have to support passing the bill. And I think that, that's why all 4 of these recommendations are on here, to signify that we want to continue these discussions and we want to draft a bill in order to have a resolution before the end of the next session, I guess. Other questions, comments? Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you. So I, looking over these as well as reading the background information, there were 2 words that struck me as also with your explanation, and that was robust discussion. And I think that one of the things that we really need to do with these bill drafts as they come out is we need to commit to each other on this board, or on this committee, even if you are retiring in 72 days, to continue to have these conversations. So that way we bring forward language that is the best for our state, and that 26 years of history matters. We need to know that information, and I am more than happy to make a motion at this time. If you wish for me to do them all together as a group, or if you wish to have them separately. For us to move forward, though, with all 4 of the recommendations of the bills, and then make a commitment amongst each other to have that very honest discussion about where problems could exist or what areas we need to define further, taking into account exactly what my colleague over here on the left, never thought you'd say that about someone, has stated. But I just think it'd be smart for us to have these discussions as the bill is being drafted and worked upon during the legislative session.
Senator Goicoechea.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In the interest of time, I was wondering maybe would it be something we want to consider going through the 8 BDR requests we've got here and maybe ranking them, and then that way when it falls off when we get to this afternoon's discussion, and clearly there's only going to be so many BDRs, kind of prioritize what we think as the committee are the most critical. So I guess we'd probably go through all 8, not just dividing water and public lands, but in my mind, they're looking at this packet. There are 3 or 4 that I would definitely that need to come forward, just because of my years here and the question's still being asked, and it was asked 20 years ago. So got to be resolved someday.
I think that is an excellent idea, and that is what we're going to do. And I'm going to ask Mr. Stinsbeck to walk us through the subsection B public lands recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, again, Jens Stinsbeck, Research Division of the LCB. While I walk through the rest of the work session document, I do want to remind the subcommittee that there are 2 recommendations that are actually to send letters. Those letters do not count as bill draft requests. There are 2 recommendations that are for resolutions, which do count as to that count for that full committee. So with that, under the B section, public lands, B5 is to request the drafting of a resolution on land use planning to encourage locally led efforts, coordination between federal, state, and local governments, and multiple use of public lands while providing for the sustainability of these lands economically, socially, and environmentally. This was recommended by Jake Tibbetts with your county based on multiple recommendations within the attachment of B5. The next recommendation in the work session document is B6, request the draft of a resolution declaring SMART from the start, soil development as the state policy for Nevada. This was recommended by Jesse Hill, Chair of Humboldt County Board of Commissioners. You can see attachment B6 for background information on that. We did hear this morning public comment on it as well. There's a letter in opposition from the Inter-West Energy Alliance online. And then the next recommendation is B7, to send a letter to Congress expressing support for congressional action to provide clarity on a protocol to address RS 2477 rights of way. Also recommended by Mr. Tibbetts from Yucca County, and you can see attachment B5 for that. Last recommendation on the work session document is B8, to send a letter to the BLM expressing support for the Nevada Greater Sage-Grouse Conservation Plan and its conservation credit system in managing greater sage-grouse in Nevada. This was also recommended by Mr. Tibbetts from Yucca County, and you can also see attachment B5 for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. I'll open it up first for any general comments, discussions on the second step, but really all of the recommendations. Yeah, Commissioner Jones.
I had a process question with regards to recommendation number 6. Is this what, if we're requesting a resolution declaring SMART from the start as the policy for Nevada? Certainly when we make recommendations, they can be modified as it goes forward in the legislature. But I guess I sort of viewed this as a binary choice of, is it only, if we make a recommendation, then it must be this policy, or is it simply that we are recommending that the state have a policy?
Excellent question. And I think we do have somebody from the Humboldt County Board of Commissioners here that I wanted to ask a very similar question, because I understand that the SMART from the start policy, that's a term of art. It's not just a general statement. And so my question to Humboldt County is this something that we can workshop and make adjustments to make it Nevada specific? Or, like Commissioner Jones said, is this a kind of a up or down? Either we adopt the policy that other communities have adopted, or we don't. And I think that person is online, so I'm hoping that, perfect, there she is.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Subcommittee. I'm Andy Reber. I'm a public lands consultant for Humboldt County, and I'm here representing the board this morning, so thank you for this opportunity. In answer to your question, thank you for the question. It's an excellent question. I would say that Humboldt County's position on this is that we're presenting not a binary choice, but a set of concepts that we would invite the subcommittee to consider adopting. And I think to workshop it and to develop something that's Nevada specific, I would say Humboldt County is very open to that. We would like to be part of that conversation. But the core concept behind the Smart from the Start policy is that solar development should be concentrated on previously disturbed lands, of which here in Nevada we have a lot of, both in terms of anthropogenic disturbance from former mining sites, brownfields, and on the other hand, vegetatively disturbed sites where we have cheatgrass monocultures, of which there are millions of acres, unfortunately in this state. So we would invite you to work with us and other counties who have adopted this policy, and the Nevada Association of Counties who helped us craft it, as well as the Nature Conservancy who also helped us craft it, to come up with something that is Nevada specific, that works for this state.
Thank you so much. That makes me more comfortable moving forward, and I think we might even amend the request to be drafting a resolution declaring and defining Nevada's Smart from the Start solar development policy.
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Please, Commissioner Jones.
Has there been, you've mentioned that there are these sites that have been identified. I guess my concern with the way that it's drafted is it is within 10 miles of an existing utility corridor and disturbed and low conflict. So have those, have the lands that qualify under those three separate criteria been identified? Because I can certainly understand there are lands that are within 10 miles of a transmission line, and there are mining sites, and there are disturbed lands, but they got to meet all three of those criteria, which seems pretty restrictive.
I would say on that score, what we're finding in Humboldt County, doing even just a cursory census of the lands that we might have available, that there are substantive lands within that 10-mile corridor of utility lines that particularly meet the vegetative disturbance criterion, that are not within, say, the 1-mile buffer zone of communities. So I think, going back to the comment that we heard earlier from the Northwest Energy Alliance, that this would prohibit almost all, I think that is neither accurate nor realistic. I think, in fact, there is quite a lot of land that would be available under this kind of policy, particularly due to the large amount of lands in Nevada that have transitioned from sagebrush steppe to cheatgrass monocultures. We have quite a lot of that kind of land. And what the counties would like to invite this board to do is really work with the counties to identify those lands, and also to identify the lands that have been previously disturbed by mining, to repurpose those lands so that we are not carving out new areas in intact sagebrush habitat when we already have lands that are disturbed. So I think there's quite a lot of opportunity under this kind of policy to have ample solar development that does not disturb intact habitat and also protects our communities and our people.
And Madam Chair, I absolutely appreciate that. I think that there are certainly those opportunities. Speaking for Southern Nevada, particularly Clark County, I don't think any solar project in Clark County would meet these criteria because we just don't have, I mean, we don't have sage grouse for one, but we also don't have former mining sites, et cetera. So that's why I am 100% on board with adopting a policy because I have serious concerns with the way the BLM goes around their process and believe there must be much more local input. But I'm concerned that even, for example, the Southern Nevada Water Authority solar projects would not meet this criteria. So that is a concern.
Senator Goicoechea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess as I look at it, maybe we need to soften the language a little bit. And I don't know if Humboldt County is agreeing with that, but maybe a statement like preference should be given to, and these particular, whether it's a mining site, proximity to the transmission corridor. And you end up, as you walk into one of these applications, actually ranking them and along the preference lines. And clearly, if it's a mine site and it's sitting right next to Falcon Gardner, yeah, it should be a win. And again, depending on what the landscape looks like. But yeah, maybe as we're talking a resolution or a letter and trying to stand up kind of a policy and a program for the state. But I think, yeah, we're probably going to have to soften it a little bit and fall back to, we can't just say, well, smart is right. But the bottom line is, preference. And again, typically that's what's happening. But my biggest concern is the locals aren't being involved in a lot of these siting processes, and they need to have the ability to be at the table and say, no, that won't work here because it impacts this, and this, in its undisturbed landscape. Therefore, our ranking of it would put it close to the bottom. Whereas if you've got something out there somewhere in the world where clearly it makes sense and solar's good, and transmission is going to be in Nevada is going to be the key piece of this. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of these companies that are willing to build miles and miles of transmission line just to access a site that's good for sun and maybe not good for the rest of the state. So I think we need to soften this with preference and, hey, you rank this application and clearly the locals are saying, no, we don't want it. It probably shouldn't happen. Thank you.
Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. And I want to second the Senator's comments on softening the language, because I think it gets to a bigger issue, which is most of these lands are managed or controlled by the Bureau of Land Management. And I would agree they don't take into consideration local needs and local thoughts. That's a nature of the way the BLM and the federal system are set up. And maybe we need a broader resolution basically giving more control to the state of Nevada with regards to the public lands. Because that gets, to me, to the heart of the issue here, which I don't think we can solve that today.
I'll go to Senator Goicoechea first.
All right, thank you. And we get to feeding on each other on the end here. It's going to get ugly. But, in light of the filing by Utah earlier this week, in the Supreme Court, we maybe need to start really looking at this and addressing it, that what could be coming, if they prevail in the Supreme Court with the, clearly that constitutional issue, that it was never intended for these vast tracts to be held by the federal government, and some of these lands should be, they were held as a territory, but now that we're in statehood, I think I've read the petition. It's very short, but it's to the point and it's very good. So, I think resolutions that are saying, hey, we're ready to step up and help you managing and overseeing in the event that maybe someday it will be ours. So thank you with that. I appreciate that, Assemblyman. Let's set the framework for managing these lands. Thank you.
Vice Chair Anderson.
So I'm so happy that, thank you, and I'm happy Senator Goicoechea brought in that ruling or the filing from this week from Utah. My question, though, is actually from the background information, when I look through it, there's a adopt smart from the start solar development as a state policy on page 3 of 26. And it's actually the last sentence of that first paragraph, that the state of Nevada similarly adopt a state policy supporting smart from the start solar development. Do you know of any state agency that's currently considering or discussing this idea? Or would that is one of the goals of this resolution is to urge one of our state agencies to start to do so?
This is a question for me, I take it.
It is, and I'm so sorry. I did not make that clear. My fault. Anybody that wants to answer it, I guess.
When we developed this, this is a Nevada-born concept, and really that came out of a group that the Nature Conservancy had put together. And when we developed this as a policy, one of the things that we did is shop it around to some of our fellow states who are also cooperating agencies on the BLM's solar land use plan amendment, which is a west-wide solar amendment that they're in the process of issuing right now. And so Utah was very, very interested in the Smart from the Start policy, which they also submitted both the state agency, their PLIPCO agency, and their counties in their comments. And due to the way that that solar RMPA is shaking out, which is increasingly lacking protections for communities, lacking protections for wildlife. I was informed by PLIPCO several weeks ago that they have decided to adopt the Smart from the Start concepts as part of their state policy. So they are choosing to inject that into their state public lands plan, which is something that we would love to see Nevada do. And in any way, if there are tweaks or customizations that Nevada sees necessary, we're absolutely willing to work with the subcommittee and find something that works for everyone here. But it was pretty impressive to us that Utah decided to take this on board, because it's indicative of the fact that what we're seeing from the BLM is a lack of interest in protecting our communities and our people. And it's Humboldt County's view that the state needs to fill that gap.
Thank you, Ms. Reber. I want to make sure I've got the right last name this time. Ms. Reber, for that explanation. But in the state of Nevada at this time, there is no agency, none of our state agencies are currently utilizing this idea, this concept, and or have not shown any sort of direction towards adopting it yet from your understanding. Is that what I understand from your answer?
Right. Okay. So sorry, I misunderstood your question. So with regard to state agencies like NDOW and Department of Ag, this was kind of a county-based concept. So we didn't actually shop it to the state agencies. I would say that what I am seeing in their comments are ideas and concepts that are consistent with Smart from the Start. So I think it would be a really interesting and productive conversation to sit down with our partners at NDOW, at the SET, at Department of Ag, and say, does this fit with your idea of how solar management could look? But my suspicion is that it would be very, very copacetic with their views of how solar development should go forward. But of course, I cannot speak for them.
Thank you so much for that clarification, and thank you, Chair.
Senator Goycochea.
Well, we've got another conversation started here. Again, what the state agencies actually apply, and there are a number of them. We start at local government clearly, but then as we've got our local and state grazing boards. Technically, they're recognized in statute as players in this, and yet, for the most part, they're not being engaged by the Bureau in these conversations when we get into this broad, the tribes. Again, maybe they feel comfortable, they are brought into it enough, but I'm not sure they are. But I think the first thing we need to do is kind of boil down who the players are. And clearly, we need to start from local government, the ground up, that citizen out there, and move up. So, yeah, I'm very supportive, but it's going to take some work on exactly the wording of the resolution.
Thank you for that, Senator, and I agree. I think that, and I'll take other comments still as well, but it does sound like the committee is supportive of the concept with the I don't even want to say caveat, but with the understanding that we're going to be working on it and developing the policy that's right for Nevada. And, we won't introduce a bill and we won't pass a bill until we've accomplished that. Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, good discussion. I guess the one other thing I would add as it relates to item B6 is, in my mind, what we're really talking about is an amendment to the state land use plan with regards to how we view development. I mean, that's how my brain is processing this concept.
I see what you're saying. That is another way to look at it. So let's table this item for now. I want to open it up for conversations on the other recommendations, and I am going to follow my colleague, Senator Quick-Cachia's advice to rank these at some point. But first, let's just get any discussion on really the public lands recommendations, the recommendations 5, 7, and 8. Assemblymember DeLong.
I'll just speak up. I do notice that 5, 7, and 8 are all by Mr. Tibbetts. So not because they are all by Mr. Tibbetts, but in general, I'm in favor of all of them. They all make sense.
And just so you know, that's only a small fraction of what he submitted. But they were all so wonderful. It was very hard to pick these 3. Okay. Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you. So, of course, this is about Mr. Tibbet, one of Mr. Tibbet's items, but it's B5. Would this, just looking at the agenda for subsection 3, the multiple use of public lands, would this be able to possibly clarify language around the multiple use and the very large race that occurred in some of our rural areas that had a huge impact on some of those areas because of it? Are you envisioning, or if Mr. Tibbetts would like to answer this question, would this be a way to be able to possibly address that issue of that large land race that occurred that had some very severe, it appears, issues with some of our future use of that same land?
Would you like to come up and answer some questions?
The word I was looking for was consequences.
And please don't forget to give your name on the record before you speak.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Jake Tibbetts for the record. You're being pretty risky calling me to the dais, as you know. But no, yes, that's the intent. In our packet, we had even some suggested language, and it's, as I mentioned in Eureka, it's not about dictating outcomes. It's about dictating a process and a policy. So on federal lands, the federal government is required to strive for consistency with state and local plans, policies, and controls. But there's not a mandate that they actually reach that consistency. They strive for it, and when there is inconsistency that exists between the state and local plans, policies, and controls that's documented, you try to agree to disagree and move forward. So that's all this is about, is getting policy on the record for the state to say this is the process we would like to see developed to ensure that communication's going on with local communities, state agencies, and our tribes. So it could address issues like that race where people that are familiar with those areas and those roads and how they're used and the condition they're in could have had a better influence on, we don't want to be doing that out here on certain roads. So that is the intent of this, is to just create a more formal space for the communications to happen. So.
Senator, sorry, did you? Senator Goicoechea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Tippett, I know it'd be a yeoman task, but you're already required by statute to have a master plan in place. Could this be a component of a master plan? And I know it'd be a ton of work, but could this be requiring a land use component of your master plan? And because that's required in statute. And does it give you some bullets?
So Jake Tibbetts for the record, Madam Chair, through you, yes, there is a mandate in NRS 278 for counties to have land use plans, including the federal component. It was way back in the 80s that every county was required to develop a public land policy plan. And then there were some capacity provided through the state lands to help counties stand that up. So some are dated, but most counties that I'm aware of have a public land use policy plan that probably incorporates a lot of this already. But again, this is, I do think it's important to, try to empower local communities to do this on the local level, but we have nothing on the books at the state level of what the state policy is in asking federal agencies what they should be doing and working with communities. So I think it's a multifaceted approach as we move forward.
And I guess that's what I'm struggling with, is trying to figure out how to, because you are required to have a master plan component, have that included in it. And this is mandated by the state, and it's getting the state and then the feds to recognize that this is your mandated obligation to provide this, and this is what it is. So I guess that's what I'm, maybe as we talk about this resolution, but really we want to speak to the fact that state of Nevada and the federal government, we're required to provide this. Here it is. Now, interpret it and use it.
Yeah, thank you. Jake Tibbetts agreed. Yeah.
Jake Tibbetts agrees. Other questions, comments, discussion? Ms. Weaselboy.
I have Marissa Weesboy for the record. I have an overall comment. In reviewing all these documents, I noticed that, a lot of this is wanting to put resources and implementing local knowledge expertise with local communities and state governments. However, I have not seen anything that was creating language around codifying tribes as included in local knowledge and expertise. And so I would definitely like to see that. What I did see was some of the conservation bills, tribes were used in more association with conservation, but I think we definitely align with local expertise and knowledge. And I think a lot of our, local cattlemen's associations have a direct stake in what's happening on the ground in terms of grazing and water, irrigation. These are very, hot topic issues to tribes as a whole, because a lot of our rural communities do rely heavily on ranching, and a lot of our tribal nations in rural areas were set up specifically for ranching. So we have a very vested stake in ensuring that we have water access and ensuring that we have a say overall in terms of rangeland management, or, again, solar, all of these things that could impact our grazing lands is of high importance to tribes as well. So I would like to see throughout the whole process of BDRs, tribes also included in this local and state knowledge expertise area. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree, and I see a lot of my colleagues nodding in agreement as well. Do you think it would be feasible or helpful to add like a recommendation number 9 to update language to include tribes and tribal nations as local experts?
Marissa Weasley, for the record. Yes, I definitely agree. The way that I've seen the tribal knowledge or tribal expert knowledge enacted across the state has been through committees, not necessarily going tribally specific and asking them to partake in, water boards or have more of a vested stake in our counties or as a state as a whole. It's been committees, so it's been kind of relegated to very little representation instead of having all the tribal nations, especially in the rural areas, represented. And so I think making that specific recommendation would definitely ensure that the rural voices are heard, because we're just as important. And again, we have a very important vested stake in what's happening in the whole of Nevada between Vegas and Reno and Carson. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. No. Thank you, Vice Chair Anderson.
Can I ask for like a 3-4 minute recess?
Yes.
To discuss something really quickly, so then that way also I'm not pulling you away from the staff again.
We're going to take
that is possible.
a brief recess, and then we'll tell you what we talk about. All right, I am calling this meeting back to order. Thank you all for your patience with us. As a personal note, this is kind of what I love about serving in the legislature and having true work sessions that are not just rubber stamping recommendations, but we've come up with a new recommendation that we're going to add, and that's why we took a little break to talk through the exact wording and make sure that we got something substantive that the whole committee, hopefully the whole committee can get behind to address, you know, a very, very important issue of including tribes in conversations about public land use. And so I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Anderson, who I think has eloquently designed a recommendation that will now become number 9.
Thank you so much, Chair. And again, I want to thank everybody for working with me on this in this last 7 minutes. The idea is that we would make a recommendation to begin Title 26, which is our public land statute, with language that would be similar to, this is not it exactly, but similar to, that tribal expertise is to be prioritized as part of the all local knowledge part of discussions. That is what the idea would be for number 9. Again, the beginning of Title 26, public lands, which is the public land statute, that tribal expertise is to be prioritized as a part of all local knowledge participation. We would obviously, before we get that language together, work with Director Montooth's office and staff to make sure that we have that accurately depicted and finding out if there's other areas that we should also include that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have comments, questions from the members? All right. So now I think we have not narrowed it down, we have expanded it to 9 recommendations. And I think what I'd like to do at this point is identify the most important recommendations or our priority recommendations, because as we discussed, in about an hour, we will be going to the full the full Natural Resources Committee and conveying these recommendations to the Natural Resources Committee, which can pick up all of them, some of them or none of them. And to Senator Goicoechea's point, we should have some priority built into them. So I think that we are going to move forward with all 9. And I just want to kind of get some feedback from the committee on what I heard. I think that the priorities that we've kind of identified were recommendation number 2, to continue the groundwater basin assessments. Recommendation number 4, to draft a bill to allow county commissions to develop groundwater boards. I think number 7, we did not discuss in detail, but seeing as it has been an issue for the last 20 years, maybe we should keep working on it. That's the one about 2477 rights of ways. Yeah. And I think number 9, our newest policy, is probably one of our top priorities. So it's 2, 4, 7, and 9, but I want to get feedback from the committee if I missed any or if I'm wrong about any of those. Senator Goicoechea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I'm definitely think those are, by ranking the, we've got 2, 4, and clearly 9, and then the RS 2477, that letter for what it requires a BDR. I'm also, would like to, I don't know where we ended up on 6, smart from the start, or again, how we're going to delve into that. But I think anything we can do that establishes a pecking order as far as who needs to be involved, and these decisions need to be made early and often. So I guess that would be my number 5.
Commissioner Jones?
Madam Chair, I would support that. Obviously, the discussion with regards to number 6 is important. We need a policy in statute, and as long as it reflects legislative discussion as to whether the exact criteria in what's been presented here today is right or if it needs to be modified. That's really up to the legislature, but I think putting a policy in state statute would bolster our ability to deal with the feds on this issue.
Okay. Other comments, feedback? All right. Just 1 minute here. Okay. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the recommendations one by one because we do have to send on a list to the larger committee. So I'm going to start with recommendation number 1 and ask if there is a motion to approve recommendation number 1 to take to the larger committee and whether that is with priority or without priority.
I'd like to make a motion to move this forward without priority. I do think it's important for a part of discussion, and if I'm understanding correctly, us moving it forward does not mean necessarily that people would support it. Instead, it would allow for a larger discussion at the larger committee.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Chair Anderson to approve recommendation number 1. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there is a second from Commissioner Jones. Any discussion, any further discussion? Not seeing any, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay.
Nay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was hoping you'd call for discussion before the vote. I should have. But anyway, I know we're going to need to conserve water, but the bottom line, I'm not sure how, how this is really going to be created and how, there's a lot of language going into the bill. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. But at this point, I'm going to vote. We need to have the conversation, but I don't think we need to bring the bill forward. So, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm sorry, but I don't think we're ready yet.
All right. So I think the nays were from Assemblymember DeLong and Senator Goycochea, but the motion still passes. All right, we're going to move on to recommendation number 2. We do have the option to combine that with the appropriation in recommendation number 3, which would allow us to remain in our limit, the number of recommendations that we can pass on to the larger committee. Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to combine 2 and 3 and make this a priority bill for our subcommittee.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Okay, we have a second from Senator Goycochea. Any discussion on the motion? Not hearing any discussion. We will move to a vote on approving recommendations number 2 and 3 as a single recommendation and sending that to the larger committee with priority. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. All right, I believe that one passes unanimously. That takes us to what was previously number 4. I'm still going to call it number 4 for the sake of clarity. Regarding groundwater boards, and is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I
Okay.
was going to let the
Commissioner
do so.
Jones. All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Jones to approve the recommendation with a second from Senator Goycochea.
Will this be a second priority bill?
Also as a priority. And I think that was discussion on the bill, discussion on the motion. Senator Goycochea.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess we're taking this up second, but I'm not sure that's as high a priority as maybe, in my mind, is maybe number 6 or, so even though we're ranking, I'm saying number 2 is definitely first in my world. And the groundwater board, and it's in statute, but if we have to drop one off, I guess I'm kind of concerned about ranking here. I'm sure you guys maybe number 9 for what it is. Do we rank that a little higher, because of the tribal, and the amending 26. So where we rank it, I'll definitely support it. I think it needs to be one of our BDRs, but maybe not. If we have to lose one, let's have that discussion. Okay, thank you.
And I think we can adjust the rankings as it works. They're kind of unofficial anyway. Yeah, or at the end of our discussion. I just want to get through all of the recommendations and make sure that we have the votes to move them all on, or not. So let's take a vote on this number 4. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right, it passes unanimously. This takes us to recommendation number 5, which again is now our 4th recommendation. Any motions? Vice Chair Anderson.
I'd like to make a motion to support number 5.
Is there a second?
Is that priority or not priority?
But not as a priority. Either way.
Second.
I'll second.
It is a priority, but I can't tell you what number of priority it would be.
Okay. We have a motion to approve recommendation number 5 from Vice Chair Anderson, a second from Assemblymember DeLong. We're discussing the priority ranking, determining that we will determine the exact ranking later, and unless there's further discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, we have another unanimous recommendation. That brings us to number 6, the Smart from the Start policy, which we have already determined to, well, I'll accept a motion that changes the language a little bit before approving it. So I don't know who wants to, if Vice Chair Anderson, you want to make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to support number 6, recognizing that possibly the language will be different than what has been presented to us today.
All right, is there a second? A second from Senator Goycochea. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We have a unanimous decision to move this recommendation forward. And that takes us to recommendation number 7. Would anybody like to make a motion? Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the letters do not count, though, towards our bills. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great. I'd like to make a motion to support number 7. And in the interest of time, I'm more than happy to do number 8 at the same time, but that's up to you, Chair.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion then for us to be able to support number 7 and number 8.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Chair Anderson to support recommendations 7 and 8. We have a second from Assemblymember DeLong. Any discussion? Not seeing any, we'll go to a vote. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. And this one, or these two, pass unanimously to draft these letters. And finally, we will come to what is recommendation 9 that Vice Chair Anderson previously put on the record, and hopefully you have a motion.
I would like to make a motion of support for number 9 do you need me to restate it, or can I simply refer to it as the number? You're okay? Then I'd like to make a motion to support number 9.
All right. Is there a second?
I can second.
Perfect. We have a second from Ms. Weaselboy. Any discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? We have a unanimous approval of adding policy language to Title 26, and that brings us to the end of our work session recommendations. I understand that we are going to be taking now, is it 5 recommendations total to the larger committee? 6? We're taking 6? All right. We've agreed to write 2 letters. We've also created 6 policy proposals that we are taking to the larger committee in approximately 40 minutes. And so those 6 proposals will go on for discussion with the larger interim committee on natural resources. I understand and I appreciate, first of all the hard work of this committee to get through these recommendations. But second of all, that having approved all of them doesn't mean that they all have the same priority, that they all have the same importance to us, and that, you know, they're not just boxes to check. And so I think that at this point in time, we're not going to rank the recommendations as a group. I think it would be pretty cumbersome to try to come to an agreed ranking. But I do want to acknowledge that there has been some consensus around the issues that are more important and less important. And I would encourage members of the subcommittee who vote on the larger committee to also reiterate those kind of points of consensus with the larger committee when we have that discussion. And I think that brings us to the end of our work session. So I think that brings us to the end of agenda item number 5. And now we can move on to agenda item number 6, which is our second period of public comment. Anybody wishing to give public comment is invited to the front here in Carson City right now. And I don't see anybody. Oh, okay. We do have somebody approaching, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, again, my name's Craig Downer, and CREIG. Oh, yeah, my name's Craig Downer, CREIG, DOWNER, with the Wild Horse and Burro Fund / Andean Taper Fund in Minden, Nevada. This is concerning your agenda number 12. And I gave a copy to the secretary of this, but I didn't, I think I had submitted it before your last meeting. So I'll just read it here. Dear committee members, please consider my proposal to plan and allocate funds for the construction of overpasses along Nevada State Highway 360 that goes through the Marietta Wild Burro Range herd management area, and also through the portions of the Montgomery Pass Wild Horse Herd Management Area. Both of these areas have collisions with the wild burros, and to a lesser extent, wild horses that I have noticed, and there is an urgent need and some perfect sites where these overpasses of sufficient dimension could be designed and constructed. There's hilly areas, so I think it would adapt itself quite well. I have witnessed and taken photos of these gruesome results of the collisions, chiefly the burros. Many heavy trucks and semis pass through to save time on 360. That's going from 95 over to 6 toward south of mine and Luning on toward Benton and Bishop. And although there are borough signs, many of the vehicles, especially the trucks, proceed at a very high velocity. Also, people stop to observe the burros and the wild horses. So I think the whole area needs attention. It's one of my favorite areas because it's very scenic. So the speed limit, I think, also needs to be lowered on Nevada State Highway 360. These overpasses would serve for other wildlife here, like deer and smaller animals.
And you have reached 2 minutes.
That also are hit and get killed. So please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, Clifford Banuelos, Tribal State Environmental Liaison with the Intertribal Council of Nevada, working with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. This comment pertains to B, Public Land 5 and 8, and specifically regarding the language regarding pinyon juniper and its identification as encroaching and also as fire fuel and also a resource. Just for the subcommittee's attention, the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California has passed a resolution declaring a state of emergency for pinyon pine in Nevada. And the Intertribal Council of Nevada is perfecting our language on also a resolution support of that action. And letters have been sent to the state and to the U.S. Forest Service and Nevada Bureau of Land Management regarding issues regarding pinyon juniper and pinyon pine, specific to the cultural and spiritual use and importance of those trees to our culture. And so I just want on record that we're going forward with that action regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else coming to make public comment in person, so we will go to the phones for any additional public comment.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to participate in public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kevin Emmerich. My organization is called Basin and Range Watch. I want to make a quick comment on Smart from the Start renewable energy. The Bureau of Land Management is currently reviewing a public land rule, and they're implementing it right now. And in this rule, they're prioritizing conservation as a management action, and they're using the concept of areas of critical environmental concern. We have nominated 2 of these, one of them west of Cactus Springs, Nevada, and an area identified as the most crucial desert tortoise connectivity corridor in Nevada, and in the Pahrump Valley, where there are several large-scale solar applications. These nominations give the Bureau of Land Management an opportunity to consider additional alternatives to the solar sprawl. The ACECs are not as restrictive as national monuments, so all land uses do not have to be curtailed with this. And I would like to send these 2 nominations to this board here for your consideration, and that's something I'm going to do. And thank you very much.
You have no more callers wishing to participate at this time.
All right. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of agenda item number 6. But it looks like one of my members wants to contribute. Commissioner Jones.
I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to serve on this subcommittee, and good luck with the full committee. The staff has been fantastic as always, and congratulations, and enjoy your time away, Senator Gogochea.
Agreed. Our staff is the best of the best, and we are so lucky to have them, and so lucky they put up with us, especially me, making up new recommendations on the fly, and they do it with aplomb. So we couldn't do this without LCB, without broadcast, without the legal department, the research department, our secretaries, everybody involved who makes all of this happen. And definitely, I want to thank the members of the committee for their commitment to public lands and traveling across the state of Nevada with me to have these discussions and to work through these issues. It really is my honor to chair this committee. And with that being said, there is one more item on the agenda. It's item number 7, which is adjournment. But if he would be willing, I would like to pass the gavel over to Senator Goicoechea to take us through item number 7.
We are adjourned.